Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Last week when Home Minister Amit Shah spoke in the Lok Sabha and spoke about Manipur, did he lay out a convincing and credible roadmap to resolve the crisis in the state? Or did he fail? Or did he come up with something that was really inadequate? As a result, we asked today, what are the steps that are needed to tackle the law and order problem, which is an immediate concern, and then beyond that, the political problem, which is far more intractable? Those are the key issues I shall raise today with the Director of Human Rights Alert, Babloo Loitongbam. Babloo Loitongbam, let me begin a little differently. The Manipur crisis is now almost 3.5 months old. Let's start by assessing how different governments have handled it. Let's start with the state government in Biren. What's your assessment of the way they've handled it?
Well, Karan, initially, this problem could have been nipped in bud, despite of all the misgivings, despite of all the mistakes, if the government responded on the 3rd of May to the violence that escalated in Churachandpur and More immediately. I think many of this escalation that we are seeing would have never happened. There was kind of a total lack of response. I was told that because perhaps that day the Vice President was also there, let us assume that for some reason the machinery was engaged in something else. But I still cannot put my mind across to see why on the 4th of May, which is by far the most violent day, the state's response was almost zero. Rather, this was the most violent day. I mean, I think the state machinery is geared up, particularly in a state like Manipur, which has been facing this kind of law and order, some low-intensity conflict for decades together. There are wherewithals of dealing with this problem at quite short notice. But the fact that this has not been used and this has not been geared up till date, and also there was a little hopefulness that when Amit Shah did pay the visit that perhaps something is going to happen, and he have given a promise also to the people of Manipur that within 15 days he will come out with a solution. We were all pinning our hope that perhaps something is going to happen. But unfortunately, that again passed off. And the most recent one was after a lot of this, mobilization from the opposition. Finally, Manipur has come in the national focus, and a debate has been conducted on Manipur. But strangely, that has also not brought the respite. Rather, it has created more anger among different sections of the people. None of the MPs from Manipur could speak. Even though they are from the ruling party from the NDA alliance. Mizoram MP, we are told his microphone was switched off. And again, that had come and gone, and the violence continue. I don't know what is going to really I mean, we are having need a very deep introspection on the whole mudsliding of democracy that we are experiencing in this country, and its inability to respond to a crisis as grave as we are seeing in Manipur is extremely unfortunate.
I'll come to the debate in Parliament in a moment's time, but let's first focus on Biren Singh and the state government. You're clearly suggesting that on the first 2 days when they could have nipped it in the bud, they were negligent. Perhaps they were distracted by the visit of the Vice President. What happened thereafter? Did they, in some sense, become complicit in wanting it to continue?
That's a good question. If I say that, I'll be in trouble back home. But let us try to understand this a little more objectively. We are told there are already additional 60,000 troops that has been flown into Manipur. Where are they? What are they doing? What is the peace initiative? Obviously, we are seeing on the ground that very angry Meitei youth with arms and very angry Kuki youth in arms are clashing on a daily basis. If you speak to the Kuki, they said behind the angry Meitei youth are the backing of the police. And if you speak to the Meitei, they'll say behind the Kuki youth are the Assam Rifles. And who are they getting their power from? N. Biren Singh on the one hand, Amit Shah from the other. And I mean, I can't help coming back to the parliament because Amit Shah says Biren Singh is fully cooperating. So this is a conflict between people who are driving their power from two good friends who are in full cooperation. I mean, if you do this simple mapping of the conflict, I can't make sense of what's happening in Manipur.
I'll come in a moment's time to both Amit Shah and Biren Singh, but let me first talk about the Prime Minister. For 79 days, he had nothing to say about Manipur whatsoever. When he did speak, it was after that dreadful rape video went viral, and he spoke for 40 seconds, and a lot of it was political whataboutery. And when the debate happened in Parliament, he spoke for 2 hours 15 minutes, of which, according to the Calcutta paper, The Telegraph, 5.5 or 6 minutes were devoted to Manipur. How did that go down in people in Manipur? A Prime Minister who simply is unable to speak.
I think it is shocking. I think people were very, very disappointed by the way I think the Telegraph reporting was quite apt, just blah, 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 blah. And no substance in terms of, I mean, it's all good to say we are trying to restore peace, but how? Is there a roadmap? People are starving to listen to, you know, the Bishwa Guru. He's now talking about Ukraine. He's now talking about a new world order. We are going to come into in yesterday's Independence Day speech, we are going to be developed country. We are going to be the third largest economy very soon. But what is your response to a increasingly, devastating situation in Manipur? And if you're not able to respond to this, I mean, you might look and think of climbing that huge mountain, but if you are not able to deal with the thorn that is in your feet now, you will never reach there. And I think you have to give attention to the thorn that is sticking at your toes now to be able to climb that. And simply neglecting it and making it fester, you will end up spoiling your own fit, but will never be able to reach those big goals that we are setting ourselves for.
I've spoken to maybe 20-25 people in Manipur, Kuki, Meitei, Naga. Practically every one of them have said that they feel let down by the Prime Minister. Many have said they think the Prime Minister has turned his back on Manipur. Do you share that feeling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, he had not responded to crisis in this country. He had responded to Orissa, he has responded to Gujarat, he has responded to almost every other issues that is affecting the country.
When that awful train accident happened and Manipur was raging at the same time, he went to the train accident, but he had nothing to say about Manipur.
Exactly. I mean, we do empathize with what's happening in the rest of the country. But as a Prime Minister and as a father figure for the whole country, and also considering that he is such an articulate, well-spoken orator, we expect him to explain, to identify, empathize with the pain on both sides, and come out with a clear vision on what he is going to do for the people.
And that he's failed to do.
I think completely.
Let's, against this background, come to the Home Minister's speech. It was exactly a week ago in the Lok Sabha. He spoke for 2 hours. Do you think he sketched out a credible, convincing roadmap to resolve the crisis, or did he fail to do so?
Karan, we have been dealing with the problem in Manipur. I mean, I have been working on the issues in Manipur for the last 30 years or so, and we have an understanding of what is happening there. But I find the kind of representation that had come in his thing was grossly either misinformed or misplaced. Take, for example, he puts the whole genesis of the problem to the illegal immigration from Myanmar. Perhaps it is true. I mean, I know you have some disagreement with some of the people that you have interviewed about how much people have actually kind of influx have come into the Manipur. Without getting into too much of detail, the fact remains that the Nagas were 12 MLAs in Manipur. The Nagas have now shrunk to 10, and the Kukis were 8 MLAs in Manipur. Now it has come to 10. That itself is an indication that there is a demographic shift. And having lived there for all my life, I can also see that that's happening. But I think they are conflating two very important issues here. Myanmar is also in a big crisis. I mean, the quality of life is very, very poor. And I can imagine why people of the same ethnic group living in Myanmar would like to come and live inside Manipur, because you at least have an NREGS, you at least have a PTS, something that you get. Whereas on the other side, you are always being taxed and harassed by the military all the time. So there has been a slow, some kind of ossification of population for the last many decades that is happening. That is one problem. The other thing is, in the last 2 years, because of this horrendous kind of civil war that Myanmar has faced, many people have also fled into Manipur for safety, as much as they have done in Mizoram. I think these are two very different issues. The response to these democratic crises, India now being the mother of democracy, I think we do have some responsibility to respond to this present crisis slightly differently. And we have written to the Home Secretary, because Yes, we have. I mean, the Human Rights Alert, the organization that I represent, and the Hill Tribal Council, which is a civil society group in Moreh, have written to the Honorable, the Home Secretary, to identify that there is absolutely no institution to deal with this human crisis that has come about. See, refugee is not new in Manipur. It started from 1941, from Second World War here, huge, I mean, 500,000 people have moved in from there. 60s, when the Myanmar coup happened, 88, we have received a lot of this people, and now in 2001, this crisis is happening. But unfortunately, till now, we don't have any institution on the ground to deal with this. So we have written to the Home Secretary, either you open an FRRO, Regional Foreigner Registration Office, or now the Government of India's policy, if there are refugees from Tibet, then FRRO deals with it. If there are refugees from, Pakistan, all the neighboring countries are dealt directly by the Home Ministry by FRRO. But refugees from Burma is outsourced to UNHCR to deal. And the problem is UNHCR cannot go into the northeast and give their services. For these refugees who have crossed the border in Manipur and in Myanmar, have to first come to Delhi to even make their registration to the UNHCR.
I understand your point completely. No, Let me, for the sake of the audience, remind them of what exactly Biren, the Home Minister said in Parliament. Then we'll carry on, because I think it's important the audience should remember the Home Minister's precise words. According to the Indian Express, this is what he said: the origin of the current cycle of ethnic violence is an influx of Kuki refugees from Myanmar following the regime change in 2021. Then he added, as there is no border fencing, a large number of Kuki brothers came to Manipur. As the Kuki refugees settled down in the forests of the Manipur Valley, there were fears of a demographic change. That last part has infuriated the Kukis. The Kuki Impi, the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum, and all 10 Kuki MLAs have said this is a one-sided account. It's not the full truth. It's very much, they say, a Maite narrative. The Kuki have a different explanation. In presenting it as the only explanation, did the Home Minister make a mistake? Did he look as if he was taking sides?
Yeah, thank you, Karan, for reminding to me as well as to the viewers the context. I was already jumping the gun literally because it was already in my mind and I was trying to explain that. Exactly. I won't say it is a total lie, but I would say it is a half-truth. There are facts in this, but it doesn't explain the whole phenomena. That was what I was saying. There could perhaps be slow movement of people primarily because of economic reasons for the last 4 or 5 decades. But the present crisis that is coming out in the last 2 years is of a very different character.
These are refugees from the junta.
These are refugees from the junta. There are at least 6 MPs who were elected, went to Nepido after getting elected, hoping that they are going to take over the government there. And they found that the military have kind of taken over the whole place. They fled and they have run into India. They have run into India on the hope that they are going to a democratic country and they will get some protection. I have met more than 12 MPs in Aizawl.
When you say MPs, these are Burmese
MPs who are now in Aizawl. They are given proper registration. They maintain a registrar.
But they are fleeing from a junta. They are not people who come to take up residence in India permanently.
No, certainly.
They are not temporary.
They all want to go back. As a democratic country, this is a fundamental right of every person. This is Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says every person has a right to seek asylum in a different country.
Except that India claims it hasn't signed the Refugee Charter.
Even if India have not signed the Refugee Charter, India is a part of the Consortium on Refugee. And whether you like it or not, India have always received refugee, and India still hosts the largest urban refugee population in the world.
Then explain this to me, because I'm quoting what the Chief Minister of Mizoram said yesterday.
Yeah.
There are estimated to be something like 40 to 45,000 Burmese refugees who've sought shelter in Mizoram. It hasn't created a problem there at all.
No.
According to the Biren Singh government, the figure for the number who've come since the junta takeover to Manipur ranges between 2,500 and 4,000. It's roughly a tenth of Mizoram. Why is that such a huge cause of concern in Manipur?
One is to say whether it is right or wrong. I think it is wrong to be too alarmist about it. But just to explain why it is happening, Mizoram is predominantly 90% Mizo, and they are, in the understanding of the Chin worldview, the Western Chin, and the Chin state in Chin are the Eastern Chin. If you look at
and I take it Manipur is not overwhelmingly Chin at all, but
exactly,
the Kukis are.
Exactly. And Manipur has always had this precarious equilibrium of ethnic equilibrium. Meitei on the one side, Naga and the Kuki on the other side. So when large number of Kuki population comes in, then it disturbs the political space. That was what I was telling you, that the number of MPs, the MLAs have increased. And therefore, the specific particularities of Manipur's ethnic dynamics have to be understood, and the competition.
That I understand. But let's come back to the Home Minister.
Yeah.
He has only pointed at what he calls Kuki refugees from Myanmar as the cause of the problem.
No, that
There's
I completely agree.
Kuki narrative for the cause of the problem, which he ignored completely.
Yeah.
The Kukis are upset that Biren Singh calls them poppy cultivators and illegal drug traders. The Kukis are upset that they are accused of encroaching on forest and other preserved lands. The Kukis are upset that Biren Singh repeatedly calls them foreigners and illegal immigrants. None of that was mentioned by the Home Minister at all. So do you think, rather than present a roadmap for solving the crisis, he's actually exacerbated the problem because he sounded one-sided? He sounds as if he's talking on behalf of the Maite and the Kuki are infuriated. Has he made things worse?
Absolutely. If I have to enter into the Kuki shoes, I can see that they will feel very laid down by this narrative. I think it is important as the leader of a democracy where there are varieties of people to be able to hold the complexity of this problem and understand and empathize both the narratives and find a roadmap.
So he should have given both narratives to Parliament, both the Meitei narrative and the Kuki.
And the Kuki narrative, and pin down where it is coming from. If you give me the space, I think if we have to pin down where the problem is coming from, he mentioned not fencing the border. But let me repeat again here that this border between India and Myanmar is the most neglected border of all the borders around the country. I mean, people say porous border. Let me reiterate, it is not a porous border, but it's an open border. Porous assume as if there is already some demarcation.
But there was a free regime, wasn't there, that allowed people from both sides to come 16 kilometers into territory.
Exactly.
The Burmese could stay for 72 hours on the Indian side, but the Indians only for 24. But that was stopped during COVID, wasn't it?
And therefore, there is a need for a much more clear-headed management plan of how to deal with these people who are moving constantly.
But tell me,
unfortunately,
I understand that, but tell me this one-sided narrative, and you said a moment ago that you absolutely agreed that the Home Minister as a result has made the situation worse. But was this one-sided narrative fed to him by Biren Singh? Many people suspect so, because it's what Biren Singh says.
I wish I know exactly what's happening in the kitchen, but we can only see from a distance and perhaps decipher what is
But
happening.
It's the logical conclusion that if the Home Minister voices what Biren Singh has been saying, then it sounds as if he's been influenced by him and he's been fed by him.
Possibly. I can't say no, but having said that also, I think I need to clarify a little one point that Biren Singh's narrative is not necessarily the Meitei narrative. When the first this outbreak of refugees came in, the Citizens Committee Manipur, wherein we have former Chief Minister, former Vice Chancellor of Manipur University, we all got together. I was the convener, and we all got together and tried to extend humanitarian responses to that. We have also written to the Prime Minister, quoting the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that we as a brotherhood of mankind, we need to respond to that much more sympathetically. We have been seeking the Honorable Chief Minister to kindly grant us an audience so that we can discuss what is the best way to handle it.
I take your point that Biren Singh is not the only Meitei narrative.
Exactly.
But Biren Singh's Meitei narrative is endorsed by Ram Baitengol, by Pramod Singh. Pramod Singh on his Facebook on the 28th of April, 5 days before the troubles began on the 3rd of May, actually put up, let us annihilate the people in the hills.
It's not only that. Meitei Lipul have also come to my office and said, if you start doing all this campaign for giving legal assistance to the Myanmar refugees, we will beat you up.
They came and threatened you.
June 2022, they came to walk into my office, 20 of them, and said, we will beat you up. I said, please come, let's discuss. What is your concern? They said, our land will be taken, we will be displaced. He said, isn't it a smart thing then to confine them to a particular geography, give them a registration, give them what is due in terms of their basic human rights, right to life, guaranteed in the Constitution, is to every person.
And remember, they are refugees fleeing injustice.
Exactly.
Treat them as we treated East Pakistanis in 71 when 10 million came to Bengal.
Exactly. And once the situation improves, they can go back. Isn't it a smarter way to deal with the problem rather than to pretend as if it doesn't exist? And because they are not fleeing because of they want anything, their houses are being bombed, they will anyway come. And then they will go underground and it will mix up with the population, and then you will find exactly the problem that you are worried about. Isn't it smart to have an open policy which is transparent and which is in tandem with our own constitutional obligation and our obligation under the human rights law?
Isn't this why you said, right at the beginning of the interview, when I said the Biren Singh government was negligent in the first 2 days, and then I asked you, was it complicit thereafter in wanting the violence to continue? And you said, if I say this, I won't be able to go home. It's because of the threats you face from Ram Baitengol and Meitei Lipul that you can't voice what may be the truth, because it will be held against you. There will be violence against you if you do it.
Exactly. This is the problem. I wrote a full police complaint stating each and every detail of what had happened to me in this episode. The investigation never got completed. I mean, it is clear that this is the biggest problem. The
And the Manipur
space.
police, let's tell the audience, come directly under Biren Singh.
He's the Home Minister.
Absolutely. And quite clearly, he is protecting Maite Lipon and Arambai Tengol. I believe he is the patron of Arambai Tengol. And Pramod Singh, on his Facebook, has actually said, I hero worship Biren Singh. So today, in response, he's protecting them. You filed an FIR, he's taken no action.
Let me keep it at that, and I hope that these investigations and enquiries and history will record this in a much more fairer way. If I start advocating now,
No, I don't want to. I don't want you to say anything that
Yeah.
puts you in danger. Let's come back to the Home Minister's speech. The one thing we've discussed is that his analysis of how the problem began is one-sided. It's offended the Kuki, and as you said, it's absolutely made the situation worse. But there was another aspect of what the Home Minister said. He said he cannot remove and replace Biren Singh because he's been cooperating. And the cooperation he cited was he agreed to remove the Chief Secretary, he agreed to remove the Director General of Police, he accepted a security advisor. Although whether Article 355 is applying or not is a completely confused matter.
Right.
And now people are saying that in fact the unified command is headed by Biren Singh and not Kuldeep Singh. So that element is confused. But there's another good reason for replacing Biren Singh, which the Home Minister ignored. The Kuki people, who are 16% of the population, have lost complete and total faith in him. 7 Kuki MLAs from the Chief Minister's own party have lost faith in him. More importantly, 15 MLAs of the BJP out of 32
Maites.
have lost faith in him, and that includes 8 Maite. Clearly, his own party and a sizable section of the state have lost faith in him. Isn't that a good reason for removing him, whether he cooperates or not?
There's another reason why I think it's important is because we need to move forward from this stalemate that we are seeing now. And all the Kuki MLAs are saying we are not going to talk so long as Biren Singh is there. And if they are not, there's not going to be talk, if there's going to be firing in the periphery all the while, I don't know how we are going to overcome this. Are we going to wait till 2024 election before new regime change happens, if at all it happens in center? How are we going to move forward? I mean, I don't know what is stopping the central leadership. Maybe PR might not come very well, but
But
can't they
PR, you
replace-
mean Maite votes?
Yeah. I mean, if Kuki are not going to talk so long as Biren is in position, can't they have another person who is a BJP person, a fresh person where at least some level of dialogue can happen? If you are stubbornly putting Biren Singh as the face of the government and he has become such an object of hatred and someone who has perpetrated all the hate speeches that you have mentioned, then what is the way forward? How are we going to move forward? I can't understand. I still can't.
But you're
put my
saying
head
something
around.
very important. You're saying this stubborn insistence, I won't remove Biren Singh, is irresponsible.
At least if we are wanting to move forward for some kind of a reconciliation process, I think that is exactly the opposite of. If we want to move forward now, we have to at least bring the Kukis and the Maites to some kind of a negotiating
Let me put it
table.
like this. If your goal is to resolve the crisis, to bring the communities together again, it's irresponsible to insist, I won't get rid of Biren Singh.
Yeah, I think that precondition kind of kills the very idea of reconciliation.
So this is irresponsibility, isn't it?
I agree.
Let me go one step further. We've talked about the Home Minister's speech. Just for the sake of the audience, I'm repeating, he was one-sided. He's made the situation worse. It's irresponsible not to remove Biren Singh. Suppose tomorrow the Home Minister were to ring and he was to say, Mr. Loitongbam, give me your advice. What should I do to sort this out? You've worked in Manipur for 30 years. You understand the situation. Whatever the advice the Home Minister has, he doesn't understand it personally. He's not Manipuri, you are. So if he rings up and says, give me your advice, what would you say? And let's start first with the law and order problem, We'll come to handling the political crisis. What should he do so that this law and order problem ends?
I think the first primary requirement is to stop the firing that is going on in the peripheries. Without the guns being silenced, I think it will be very, very difficult to move forward. I don't know what is this 60,000 troops doing. I heard Rahul Gandhi, I don't know the working of the Indian state so well, but I think Rahul Gandhi probably knows it. There have been...
He said if you send in the army, they'll end it in 2 days.
Yeah, he said it requires just 2 days to deal with it. So I think first of all, it is to drowse the violence and then try to understand the narratives again. What is making the Meitei people's youth so angry?
Let's come to the narrative in a moment's time. Let's stick to law and order. I'll come to the narrative in a big way in a moment's time.
Yeah.
The Meitei want the Assam rifles withdrawn. They formally petitioned the Prime Minister. Clearly, whether their accusation is right or wrong is another matter. They don't have trust in that force. Should that force then be removed?
See, Assam Rifle has a long legacy in Manipur, and having documenting cases of human rights violations, there are also problems. I mean, there are some very practical problems that I saw when I was in organizing people in different kinds of peace meetings that we have. I was in one of the villages in the valley, and they were not getting water for a long time, which are the rivulets that kind of water the field. So about we call 100 pari or acre of rice is not being, it cannot be cultivated properly. So along with the MLAs, they've tried to go to this Kuki village to negotiate. They said it's the Assam Rifle who have blocked them from going, so the MLAs could never reach. Assam Rifle and the Kuki militants have been working very closely for a very long time. In the 90s, to contain the Naga insurgency, 2004 to 2007, to flush out the Meitei insurgents from the area.
And then again with the Sioux groups.
And the Sioux were signed in 2008. And thereafter now, the so-called poppy cultivations, which is spread all over at least 60 to 70 kilometers all over the hills of Manipur, many of them are done in very close proximity to Assam Rifle camps. So there is a very old kind of a history of mistrust that the valley people have towards the...
Without saying it, you seem to be agreeing. If the Assam Rifles has lost the confidence of the Meitei, and the important thing is to ensure that you have law and order, replace the Assam Rifles. Whoever replaces them will give the Meitei confidence.
BSF, I mean, there are
ITBP,
CRPF, so many of them. Okay. I think that kind of a healing touch is required. We can go into the facts of it later, but these are all feelings which are very strong.
So for a healing touch purpose, it makes sense to remove the Assam Rifles.
I would agree, sir.
What about the opposite? The Kuki equally strongly distrust the Manipur police. They do not want the Manipur police entering the hill areas. They don't trust them. They see them as a vanguard or the sharpshooters of Biren Singh. So in return, should there also be a condition, Manipur police will not enter the hill areas, that will be left to a paramilitary force or the army?
I think it is already done. De facto, the Manipur police cannot operate in the hills at the
moment. No, not quite. I was interviewing Ginza Walzong, the spokesperson of the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum, literally 5 days ago. He said what the Home Minister had agreed is that when the Manipur police enter the hill areas, they will be accompanied by either the Assam Rifles or other paramilitary or the army.
Right.
That hasn't fully satisfied the Kuki because they don't want the Manipur police at all. So what I'm saying is, if we agree that the Assam Rifles are replaced to give a healing touch to the Meitei, similarly, why not agree that the Manipur police will not enter the hill areas? That will be left to either the paramilitary or the army. An equal healing touch on both sides.
Yeah, equal healing touch on both sides, I completely agree. However, the operational part of it, of the Manipur police or Assam Rifle, perhaps I am not in a position to comment at this point in time, considering that I don't have
No,
full knowledge of that.
we're not talking
on
as
principle.
people. Yeah.
On principle, I completely agree that some healing touch have to be done. The hurts are very, very deep now, and therefore some level of concession to feel that they are being cared for, people are listening to them is, I think, absolutely paramount to start any kind of a process to
And clearly,
reconcile.
if the Assam Rifles are to be replaced by the CRPF or the ITBP or the BSF, and you don't stop the Manipur police entering the hill areas, then that will really further inflame and exacerbate. So if you give one healing touch, you have to give the corresponding one to the other side, don't you?
Well, having said that, again, Manipur police is not just Meitei, to be precise. I mean, the DGP was a Kuki himself.
And he was removed.
He was removed. And also there are very senior...
And the Kuki didn't like the idea he was removed. They felt that you were pinpointing guilt before anything had even been done.
Right. I agree.
So we agree that if you're going to give a healing touch by removing or replacing the Assam police, you do need to stop the Manipur police entering the hill areas. Let that be done by the army or the paramilitary. We agree on that.
Well, I don't want to enter into a controversy
I
again
know
by committing myself.
I know, and you will face a backlash from the
exactly,
Meitei.
exactly.
They will applaud you for saying remove the Assam police, but they will be very upset if you agree that the Manipur police can't go. I understand. What about something else? The army have repeatedly complained about the Mira Paibi. They say they are blocking the roads, they are often blocking convoys, and according to the Hindu, at least on one occasion, if not more, they have actually stolen goods from army convoys, fairly sizable amounts of food. Should a restraint be put on the Mira Paibi as well?
I think at this point in time, Karan, Manipur is working on a complete war hysteria. The level of mobilization that is happening there, the anger, and obviously army being the representative of the Indian state on the ground, the anger of the people are also directed towards them. I'm sure there might be some excesses here and there, but on the other hand, we cannot discard Mera Paibi totally. It will be like throwing the baby in the bathwater. Mera Paibi has been kind of a vanguard of the society for many, many years.
Traditionally, no doubt. But I'm talking about the role they're playing at the moment.
At the moment, there is very strong narrative within the Meitei society that India government is not protecting us. The Kuki infiltrators are going to take away our land. Our hills are being destroyed by poppy cultivators, and therefore we have to defend. And that is what triggers many people to this energy to come out and volunteer and try to... Maybe they are not 100% correct, but in their own innate sense of thing, these are all volunteer. They are not paid for. They are not doing for any they are doing it all for the protection of the community. And one has to have a little bit of need to also empathize and understand where it is coming from, rather than just
action against
discard.
the Mira Paibi because the army is requiring would be a mistake.
I think the Mera Paibi protects the Manipur society much more than the Indian army protects the Manipur society. So there is a very strong kind of a connection between the people and the Mera Paibi. And if you think that Mera Paibi can be removed and protect the people by the army, I think that's a totally mistaken kind of an analysis. We have to see that these are, at the end of the day, Mera Paibi is part and parcel of the people. And therefore, if I were in a position to decide which one we should put the weight on, I would put my foot on the need for Mera Paibi's interest to be safeguarded. I think the army is only instrumental in, they should play a much more positive role, and they have to look at where their interventions are required. Okay. You cannot be too intrusive into the community's life.
One more question about the law and order before I come to that very intractable issue of the politics underneath it all. Mm-hmm. If all the things we've talked about, I won't repeat them, but all the things we've talked about do not enforce law and order, mm-hmm. the concern in the periphery, the shooting, the random killing continues, do we then need president's rule?
That cannot be ruled out. But before we jump into the president's rule, I don't know if, again, if we are trying to enter into the BJP shoes, it would make a lot of sense to replace Biren Singh with your own another BJP leader who can communicate with the Kukis and start a process. President's rule is a very naked thing. Then the confrontation would be directly with the central government, and that has never worked well with Manipur.
This underlies once again, doesn't it, the need to remove Biren Singh, because a fresh face would still be a BJP face. The government would still continue.
Yeah.
The fresh face would still be presumably a Meitei chief minister, but it would appease the Kukis because the man they hate is gone. They'd have now to deal with a new man.
Yeah, exactly. That is, some kind of, at the end of the day, politics is about give and take, and some amount of give and take is necessary. You can't say that whether you like it or not, we are imposing this on you. And after this kind of violence and betrayal and sense of deprivation and hatred and anger and grievances, you have to start with something fresh.
And this is underlining the irresponsibility of stubbornly refusing to remove Biren Singh. Let's come then to the bigger, wider political problem. It can only be tackled after law and order is enforced. But now, for the sake of our conversation, let's assume some semblance of law and order is enforced. It may take weeks, it may take months, but it is enforced. How then do you begin to tackle the political problem? Should it be the government doing it, either at the state level or the center, or should they put forward civil society groups and highly respected individuals? One name that comes to my mind is Ratan Thayam.
Yeah.
Should it be people like that rather than the government itself?
I think it makes a lot of sense to have civil society start a process to work out the nitty-gritties of it. Because all said and done, when government are present, there is always a lot of power involved in it. There's a lot of power asymmetry with people who are going to be negotiating. So it makes a lot of sense to thrash out those, nitty-gritties and the nuts and bolts first at what you call the track 2 level, rather than going track 1 directly. It's easier to thrash this out. So I think a civil society process where you have the Nagas, as well the Kukis and the Meitei, to envision what is the nature of Manipur that you want to live in, I think will be very, very critical. You kind of because that kind of the dialogue process cannot happen with the government.
Father Walter Fernandez, in an interview he gave me,
Yeah.
said that maybe because the BJP government will find it difficult to take the initiative itself, they should look to the Mizo government and the Naga government to take an initiative. These are two states that understand Manipur. Let their chief ministers get involved, not directly, but again through civil society groups. Does that make sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense, but I would also come with a little caveat, because the Nagas in Manipur has the demand for a Naga limb. The Kukis are also looking for a larger Kuki thing. So if that is the case, again, the Meitei might feel a little, that
they feel under pressure.
Under pressure that you are pushing. So I think I think we have to come with little out of box. If it is the thinking is the same of demanding greater Naga limb, greater Mizoram, Manipur territorial integrity, if we go round and round in this, perhaps the solutions will never come. So we might have to think a little outside of the box on how do we accommodate different, cultural and political identity within the
This
Manipur.
is where civil society groups
Exactly.
and individuals play a big role.
Exactly, where they don't have that rigidity of having to defend a particular position. A kind of an open-minded, brainstorming would be required to this.
Tell me, are there people in Manipur at the moment throwing up ideas? Are there people in Manipur talking about possible solutions, out-of-the-box ideas? Or is it too early for that?
Well, I think because the conflict is very high in the intensity, this has not come out in the public discourse. But internally, there are a lot of internal discourses that is happening. For example, recently there is this group of elderly Manipuris who have come together called Taragi Chaishu. It's like walking stick for 10. It's like a collective of elders. And there are already a lot of internal discussions happening on, in a way, the Kuki dominant narrative. Again, I'm sure there are multiple narratives within Kuki also, but the dominant narrative is to create some kind of a autonomy for themselves. Maximalist could be the state, minimalist could be what they say they were already working out with A.K. Mishra about a kind of a
autonomous territorial council, possibly under Schedule 6.
Yeah, that is, so how can Manipur, a larger Manipur territorial integrity and emotional integrity and this whole legacy of Manipur, I mean, whether you like it or not, again, the Meitei feel that they are putting the legacy, taking the legacy of this 2000 years of history and perhaps many more thousands of years of history that's going to come. And this burden is on the Manipuri civil society today. And how do one accommodate this autonomies within Manipur is also an issue. And these are
side
issues,
by side with accommodating the autonomies, and I'm happy you're bringing it up because that is the dominant Kuki demand, but there is also a dominant Meitei demand that has to be thought about, the land imbalance.
Yeah.
And the Meitei want a solution to that. The preferred one is give us scheduled tribe status, which the Kukis are hotly disputing. But these are the two vexed political issues that have to be thought about out of the box. Separate administration for the Kukis, the land imbalance for the Meitei.
You know what? The land imbalance seems to me more a fear that whatever they are having now may be gone, may be lost. Because, with a lot of fanfare, the Chief Minister has inaugurated the coming of the train. And with the coming of the train, in a one way, it's a boon that you can transport things quickly. But on the other hand, large number of populations are going to come in, and some of them may be poor coolies on the platform, but some big kind of rich interests are also going to come in. And this little land of 8% Meitei land is the only land which the corporates will be able to buy. And tomorrow, will this again dry up is I think more pressing question. This whole fear of many of our friends from the hill that Meiteis are going to take over land, I think is not, again, totally true, because Meitei as a culture is a very wetland adapted culture. And I know many people who live in the hill feel a bit like fish out of water. And there is not a very strong demand for unlocking the hill lands in the hill. Again, it will be more the corporate interest which will immediately grab.
So can I make that simpler for the audience, because they make it lost? You're saying that the Meitei demand to be given scheduled tribe status, the Meitei land imbalance, is not that they want to acquire land in the hills. They're not actually threatening Kuki and Naga land holdings in the hills. They want to secure for themselves the valley because they are scared not about necessarily Kuki Naga buying in the valley, but others from the rest of India coming in because the train has now arrived.
Yeah.
That's what they're worried. Large corporates will take over the 10% that is the valley.
Yeah.
That is a fear that hasn't been understood.
I think so. I mean, that is where we need dialogue and heart-to-heart dialogue to understand. I don't see no Meitei middle class is going to buy land in the hills once it opens, because the tendency, even within the valley, the tendency is to buy land near the town, because that's where all the facilities are. Perhaps when you have a much more equitable development, perhaps people can think of it. But as of now, that is not the immediate. Nobody is trying to buy land in the hill. There's no kind of a beeline to, go and grab land
But
there.
tell me, these two political problems, the land imbalance for the Meitei, the separate administration for the Kuki, do you think civil society can throw up ideas that can bridge the gaps?
I think that is the only source. Independent people, civil society have to meet face to face, eye to eye, look into each other and say, to try and understand, where is that fear coming from? Is it a real fear? Is it just hypes? Or are we able to enter into each other's shoes and empathize with each other? I think that's the only way out. And other things are...
And when civil society and when individuals try and talk, you're saying the government should keep out of it. Let them come up with an agreement. Governments should only implement it.
Governments should possibly facilitate those processes, but I think to a large extent, the solution has to emerge from the people. And if we are a democracy, those will of the people is what the government should be formulating it into a policy and build it. Unfortunately, the other way seems to be more the trend in this country.
We're coming
now.
right to the end of this interview. One thing is going to be apparent to the audience. This is a very difficult and complicated situation where the political problem has become intertwined with emotion on both sides. and with identities and histories on both sides. Would you accept this is not something that's going to be either easy to solve or quickly to solve? It could take years, maybe even a decade.
I completely agree. It's a very complex and perplexing issue. But any protracted conflict anywhere in the world is like that. There is a need for people coming together, understanding each other, understanding the complexity of it. And I like the phrase that John Paul Lederach used, he calls it the moral imagination. Rooting yourself, standing on the ravage and the conflict and the killings and the destruction. Are you able to imagine a future, a common future, wherein you see these destructive relationships gradually transforming into a constructive relationship? Variety, differences, diversity can be a source of problem, but that can also be the resource of peace and a much more colorful life. Manipur has gone through very, very difficult phase in the past. 1819 to 1826, we were almost depopulated and kind of extinct in the hands of the Burmese. I think we are going through a similar phase now. This is quite unprecedented in many aspects, but I'm quite positive there are enough good people among the Kukis and excellent people within the Métis who will find a way out. And that is, of course, a challenge, but I wish the government helps and facilitate for these kind of solutions to emerge, rather than constantly putting fire so that on both sides to make it burn with greater ferocity. We hope that people will be able to prevail, and we will at some point look back to this difficult time in history and said that was tough, but we have overcome it. I look forward to that day, and
Babloo Loitongbam, thank you very much indeed. And I hope nothing that you've said today will get you into trouble when you return to Imphal. Stay safe, look after yourself.
Thank you, Karan.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.